our studios here at Abelenkwe. This is Hot News with me, David Otokuno Ato. Tonight, issues coming up, making headlines in our dear country, Ghana, is what we will be bringing to you. A lot of issues happening throughout these days, not one, not two, a lot of issues. It's going to be an exciting year, and I'm so excited to be bringing you all these current affairs as it breaks, when it breaks. My name is David Otokuno Ato. When I come back after this short break, I'll introduce my topics, which you will not want to miss, and I'll introduce my guests for this evening's discussion. Please stay tuned in. Welcome back to the program. Hot News is live on Facebook at Pan-African Television. You can also connect with me also on Facebook at Atos Watch with your comments on the stories we bring you this evening. My guest tonight is a member of Parliament for the good people of Sagnerigu in the northern region of Ghana, Honorable Ataisa. Good evening,
David.
And
good
welcome
evening.
to the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
A lot is happening today.
Yes.
But before we go into that, let me introduce what we'll be discussing today. In Parliament, it's getting exciting. We all could remember what happened during the swearing in of the Speaker and members of Parliament. Two members of Parliament found themselves wanting, including the Member of Parliament for Akutia, Ernest Yaokumi, who has recently been cited, for contempt of court. We'll be going into those discussions. And then Anot Dompre, Member of Parliament for Aduajiri in Sawam constituency. You remember this particular gentleman. We'll have a few discussions on him, and then you'll remember who these guys are. But currently, the Koforidua High Court has, convicted the Member of Parliament for Akutia, Ernest Yaokumi, for contempt of court after presenting himself to be sworn in as Member of Parliament for that particular constituency. And I believe viewers will remember what happened. He was called up, reminded of the consequences if he is sworn in as Member of Parliament because of the court case that was against him. He was defended by the current minority leader, Afenyo Marking, and they both said they were willing to face the consequences. So the consequences is coming. Is he willing to go through that? Well, Honorable is just coming from Parliament.
Yes.
How did proceedings go today? Let's start off from that.
Okay, so once again, good evening to you and to your listeners and those watching us from afar. And to the good people of Sagnerigu. Like you rightly said, I am just from Parliament and from a pension committee meeting. We are trying to draft a pension program for members of Parliament who retire in future.
Okay. For yourselves?
Yes, like any other public sector worker. So that's a meeting that I'm just returning from.
Okay.
And today hasn't been that much. We adjourned the sitting around, I think 4, because like I always say, we are still doing the transition period.
Right.
Because there's no government business as we speak. Government will read its budget on 11th March. Right. That is where government business will start.
Right.
And Parliament will now be seen to be working. But as we speak, we are still undergoing a lot of training and reforms. Today, we had the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources
right,
who came through to give us update on the Galamsey fight. And the floor was open for members to make contributions. So. And after that, several members of Parliament made statements. If you look at our standing orders, it gives room for people to make statements of urgent nature in the country, either in their constituency or national in character. So people were allowed to make statements, and afterwards, there was no business for the day, and we had to adjourn to tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon.
Right.
So basically, that's what happened in Parliament.
Then came the issue about the Member of Parliament for Akutia.
Yes.
How do you take it? Or how did you take it when the news broke?
So first of all, it's a mixed feeling for me, because in the chamber, irrespective of our political divide, we are seen as family. So you don't wish a bad thing to befall on a family.
Right.
But on the second thought, I always believe that actions and inactions of persons must be measured and intentional. You must be ready to take responsibility
for your own actions.
Right. That was the first day I entered the Chamber of Ghana, the day we were being sworn in as members of Parliament for the 9th Parliament. And it was presided over by the Clerk of Parliament, the acting Clerk of Parliament.
Right.
At the time, after they did the roll call of members of Parliament that was duly elected and presented to the Parliament of Ghana by the Electoral Commission. Remember, before we were sworn in, there were still outstanding 9 constituencies that were not declared,
right.
If you remember.
Yes.
So, Akotia was part of
those 9.
Of those 9. Because of legal implications, issues of reconciliations, and challenging in the High Court.
Right.
Because the High Court is the appropriate forum for election disputes in terms of parliamentary, and presidential goes to the Supreme Court. So, after the roll call, then comes the election of the Speaker. At that time, there was no Speaker. So the person presiding us at that time was the Clerk of Parliament, Mr. Jethro. So when the election of the Speaker was about to commence, we raised the issue of an injunction that was issued, and in fact it was granted by the Koforidua High Court, restraining the Member of Parliament elect for the constituency from being sworn into office as a Member of Parliament. The Clerk of Parliament took custody of the restraining order and read it to the full hearing of everybody, including those outside Parliament, because the events of Parliament were captured or covered live to the hearing of the general public, and from here and abroad. And like you rightly said, the minority leader, in fierce defense, alluded to the fact that they were well aware of the order of the court
and the consequences
thereof. But be that as it may, they are ready to bear the consequences when it arises. What do you expect the majority caucus to do? We are a law-abiding side of the House. We believe in rule of law. And we believe that if a competent court of jurisdiction gives an order restraining a Member of Parliament from exercising his functions, you ought to respect it. Either you go to court to set it aside, or you go through the mill. They chose the other way. And today the consequences is here with us. So that's why I say it's a mixed feeling. One, because he's a Member of Parliament. But two, he must be made to face the consequences of his own action and that of the caucus.
I'll come back to you and find out the consequences, what can probably happen to him in Parliament.
Yes.
But I want us to listen to what a minority leader, Afenyo Marken, has been saying in Parliament today in connection with this particular case. Then we'll be back after this. Let's listen to Afenyo Marken.
We've become aware of the Koforidua High Court's decision. We are yet to procure the court ruling and the orders of the court. The lawyers are going to brief the caucus, and we will come out with our position on the matter. Meanwhile, I'm sure all necessary steps will be taken to ensure that our colleague is law-abiding and ensure that the right thing is done. But we have to say that we are dissatisfied with the approach, and we think that he has been treated unfairly. we would come out fully.
All right, so that's the minority leader in Parliament, Afenyo Markin, addressing the media in Parliament in connection with the issue surrounding the conviction of the Member of Parliament for the Akwetia constituency, Ernest Yao Kumi. So it looks like, if you look at his demeanor,
yes,
he himself is he's a little bit shocked,
yes,
for me.
But he shouldn't. As a learned senior, a lawyer of good repute.
Was it that he was daring Parliament, or he was daring the court at that time when they made, that defense? Because he should know, he's a senior lawyer.
Told, I think they were being political and partisan. So they didn't look at it from the legal perspective.
But they hadn't come to terms with the defeat.
Yes, the consequence properly.
Right.
It was the heat of the moment. The election of the speaker, normally in the last two Parliament, it was very chaotic. Yeah. So that semblance or that anxiety was in them, and they wanted to make a point.
Right.
So I think he didn't avert his mind to the implications of what he was doing. On that grounds, he can be pardoned. But the MP himself ought to have known. They don't force you to put your hand in fire.
Yeah.
Nobody does that. It is you that the injunction was issued against, not Afenyo Markins. So you don't allow yourself to be used like this. Look, the contempt against a Member of Parliament is not to the MPP minority caucus. It's directed at a specific Member of Parliament.
Right.
So he ought to have known that actions and inactions that was happening there, the consequences would befall on him alone.
Right.
And for me, I wish him well in the pursuit of justice, but I know that this is a lesson to all of us. I remember very well during Jechukwesin's time, two members of Parliament from the majority then traveled outside the jurisdiction of this country. Yeah. But there was a restraining order against the MP for Asin North. Members of the party were encouraging Jechukwesin to attend sitting in order to vote against the e-levy. Yeah. I was part of the few that said that no, we must respect the decision of the courts, irrespective of how weak or perceived that we think they are not being fair and biased or against us. We must allow the law to work so that we are not found at the bad side of the law. Right. And fortunately, they hit to the concern some of us raised. And today, he has represented his people in the 8th Parliament, and he is representing his people in the 9th Parliament. Right. What has happened to him will go in record as having bastardized the courts. A contempt of court simply means that you disrespect and you bastardize the high office of the High Court.
Right.
So for me, like I said, I wish him well. I don't envy him at this moment.
What can probably happen?
You see, if you look at our standing orders, it grants us certain level of privileges and immunity. The immunities are there. And it is clear when members of Parliament are on their way to or coming from Parliament or performing any other oversight responsibility of Parliament, even in their constituency, if they are performing parliamentary duties, they are immune from arrest. Right. However, the standing order also provides that when a member is needed for interrogation, an arrest, or a question by a competent court of jurisdiction or any investigative body, the Speaker needs to be notified to make the member available. So I think that the Speaker will adequately be notified about the conduct of that MP, right, and the necessary actions will be taken. That's what I think.
Can somebody ask, can he be sacked from Parliament?
Of course.
He can?
Yes. Once the Speaker is notified about this development, he will order the marshal.
We know you recently, recent happenings in Parliament. We know you defend your own.
Yeah.
Are you not going to do that this time around?
You should know that the 9th Parliament, or this current Speaker, he is a man who has seen it all in Parliament. You remember even leadership, the chaos that happened in the Appointments Committee, if you remember.
Yeah.
He walked them out. Yeah. He suspected them. Yeah. They went and pleaded to temper justice with mercy.
Right.
And he granted, based on several calls, according to him, people from all walks of life called for him to temper justice with mercy. So I don't see this speaker who promoting discipline. Even he, in the 8th Parliament, several indisciplinary activities were targeted at him.
Yeah.
So I am not sure he is the type that you can use Parliament to avoid justice. You can use Parliament to be above the law, in contravention to the Article 71 that says that we are all equal before the law. So I think the law must work. I think that the actions of the Member of Parliament is condemnable. If it was condemnable yesterday, so shall it be condemnable today. And I don't wish him bad, frankly speaking. I don't wish him bad. But it's a lesson for him and a lesson to us also, that always be mindful of your actions.
Are we to be expecting, because I've heard also behind the scenes, a case also against the Member of Parliament for, is it Adwajiri?
Yes.
Adwajiri.
Yes.
Not Dompre.
Yes.
I'm told he's out of town.
Yes.
So probably when he comes back,
his day will come.
It's probable he can be said.
Yes, his day will come.
Because he was also in the house at the same period.
Yes, his day will come. And the NDC as a party, we are pursuing, not only that, we are still pursuing Teme Central, we are pursuing Okakwe Central, and Obuasi.
Okay.
So these are not matters that we take lightly. We believe that democracy should be about the will of the people, not by how smart you are or the use of military power or state institutions. We believe that every member of Parliament should represent the overwhelming majority of his people.
Right.
So very soon Nsawam will get a better representation, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're still live with us here on Hot News with me, David Otukuno Ato. You can join the discussion on Facebook at Pan-African Television. In fact, on all our socials, Pan-African Television, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest. You can also connect with me also on Facebook at Atos Watch. My guest is in studio is the Member of Parliament for the people of Sagnerigu in the Northern Region. When I come back from this break, the President has inducted, if I should put it that way, or commissioned a newly created Council of State.
Yes.
Is that body still relevant towards national development? That is a big issue for discussion tonight. I'm back after this break. Please stay. Welcome back to the program. My name David Otokuno Ato. My guest in the studio, Member of Parliament for Sagnerigu in the Northern Region. We're discussing issues topical towards national development. You can join us, as I said, on Facebook, and definitely I will make sure I read your messages and concerns before we leave the studio. As I introduced earlier on, the President has commissioned the newly created Council of State with a call on them not to be like the old Council of State. And he even reminded them that Ghanaians are thinking that institution is irrelevant towards national development. Do you think so? A lot of Ghanaians recently have come up with calls, perhaps judging from the posture of the SWAL Council of State, are calling and adding and crying that the Council of State has become irrelevant towards national development. The Council of State, if you know, is an advisory body to the President of the Republic of Ghana. The President is not mandated by any law, not even under the Constitution, to accept any council advice coming in from the Council of State. So that brings the question, what then is the relevance of the Council of State if the President can still decide not to take or heed to the Council of State? So let's go into this discussion. But before that, I want us to go and listen to what the President has been saying when he commissioned the newly created or newly formed Council of State. Let's listen to the President.
Yeah.
Fortunately, many members of the council are people I've come across in my public life.
The framers of our Constitution, in their wisdom, envisioned a governance structure that balances authority with sound counsel, power with prudence, and leadership with wisdom. It is in this spirit that the Council of State was established, to serve as a reservoir of experience, a fountain of guidance, and a bastion of non-partisan insight for the executive arm of government. The Council of State, as a distinguished advisory body, is composed of men and women of integrity, experience, and sound judgment. Your role is not merely ceremonial, it is one of profound responsibility. You are expected to offer wise counsel on matters of governance, policy, and national development, drawing from your diverse backgrounds and experience. The times we find ourselves in demand nothing less than selfless service, constructive dialogue, and unwavering patriotism. Our nation faces complex challenges, including economic distress, social cohesion issues, and the need to strengthen our democratic institutions. In addressing these issues, your voices must be heard not in mere rhetoric, but in insightful, actionable, and transformative guidance that will propel our nation forward. As you take your oath of office today, I urge you to be guided by the principles of integrity, objectivity, and above all, the national interest. Let your deliberations be marked by sincerity, your advice be rooted in wisdom, and your service be inspired by the supreme welfare of the people of Ghana. I also wish to draw attention to heightened expectation of all who serve in public office. Ghanaians have indicated their revulsion for poor governance and have come to expect nothing short of quality administration of their affairs. In recent times, the Council of State has come under criticism from an expectant public who perceive their work as unsatisfactory and merely one designed to rubber stamp executive decisions. Some have even questioned the very relevance of the Council of State and called for it to be scrapped. I hold out hope that your tenure as Council of State members will convince those who may doubt your functional necessity about your importance and put to rest any such perceptions. The framers of our Constitution, in their wisdom, envisioned a governance structure that balances authority with sound counsel, power with...
All right, so that's the President of the land, John Dramani Mahama, speaking to the newly formed Council of State, urging them on not to leave the sins of the past, so to speak, and, you know, they try to be a little bit responsible, if I should put it that way. Now, let's listen to Honorable Do Ajaho. He's a former Speaker of Parliament. He's now the new chairman of the Council of State, and he's been speaking on behalf of his members. He thinks that this new Council of State will not be like the old one. Listen to him.
Mr. President, the Ghanaian people have given you emphatic victory in the last general election. It clearly shows that the things of the past, certain things in the past were not in their interest. I want to assure you on behalf of Council that we work as a team. We will support you in the governance structure, in the discharge of our constitutional and statutory responsibilities. It is true, many have questioned the relevance of the Council of State, as you rightly pointed out. Some have even called for its abolition. But I want to assure you that this council will be a council of a difference. Fortunately, many members of the council are people I've come across in my public life. Distinguished men and women in their own right. But more importantly, I have hope in this country. And this hope is consistent with your vision of empowering all manner of people, irrespective of their background. And Mr. President, I wish to report that we have 3 young men on this council who are in their 30s. The youngest being 32 years. So even as people are calling for its abolition, the youth seems to have some confidence in the council. Mr. President, you can count on us day and night. We shall respond. We know you have taken over the mantle of this country at a very difficult time. The debt of this country, the energy sector, debt, and many, many other challenges. Mr. President, in the discharge of our duties, we shall give you the necessary advice so that you can weather the storm. Teamwork, consensus building shall be our guidance. Mr. President, for those of us that you have appointed, we are most grateful that you have seen something in us, the 11 men and women that you appointed onto the council. I want to assure you, we will not fail you.
All right, so we've just been listening to the chairman of the Council of State, Dua Jao, assuring Ghanaians that they will not be like the Eswa Council of State, and they will not revisit the scenes of the past. What are your thoughts of this? Let's hear from you. Join us on Facebook at Pan-African Television, and also on all our handles, social handles, and then I'll get back to you on the issues that you will raise. My guest in studio is the Member of Parliament for Sagnerigu, still here with me. Honorable, we just listened to the 2 gentlemen, that of the President and that of the new chairman. Ghanaians on the other side, in the middle of these 2 gentlemen, think that the Council of State has outlived its purpose, because if you look at the past, or we know what has been happening, the Eswa Council of States, some Ghanaians think that they do not live up to expectations, judging from where the current standing of the country is. Do you think that the Council of State has lived up to expectations?
Okay, so first of all, let me use this platform to congratulate the Right Honorable Dua Jao-led Council of State. I think these are individuals who have achieved it all in life and continuously want to serve Mother Ghana. So I think we have to congratulate them and aid them to work in the interests of Ghana, as they have always done. And to also thank His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for the swift constitution of this Council of State. Because if you know, a lot of appointments are still pending because of absence of the Council of State.
Yes.
If you remember, there was this debate on the Bank of Ghana governor. So now that it is properly so constituted, it is my belief that some of these appointments will go through and get it done as soon as possible. So we need to get the legal framework of the Council of State. If you look at Article 89, it stipulates that there must be a Council of State with a sole mandate of an advisory body to His Excellency the President. So, as the word connotes, is an advisor.
Yeah.
And the effective functioning of any Council of State anywhere in the world depends upon the leadership of the President.
Right.
If you have a listening President, so shall the Council of State function. If you have the type of President who care less about whatever you think, you will see that the Council of State will be dormant. So the success or otherwise of the Council of State entirely depends on the level of receptiveness of the President. So I feel like the current status quo in which it is, as it was affirmed in 2022 by the Chief Justice in a ruling, that the Council of State cannot go beyond an advisory.
Yeah.
And the advice that the Council of State gives is not absolute in the judgment. She highlighted that portion, that the advice given by the Council of State is not absolute. But the President can either accept or deny. So once this foundation has been laid, it tells us we have to lower our expectation on the performance of the Council of State. Because you cannot measure their success if their role is just an advisory role.
Right.
Number two, if you look at the composition of the Council of State, the same Article 89(2), it talks about the composition. A former Chief Justice, a former IGP, former CDS, National President of the House of Chiefs, and then 11 other members appointed by the President.
So the first ones are ex officio members.
Ex officio members.
Right.
But even that one, it is still by the President, because,
right.
For example, if you have two former Chief Justices, who do you choose? If you have two IGPs former, so that one too, he still plays a role.
Right.
But these are ex officios members that are mandated to be part of the Council of State. Then you have the 11 other members that is at his discretion.
Yeah.
But he may also have his methods of choosing.
So what it means is that the first, when we say ex officio, clearly defined
in the Constitution,
former IGP, former Chief Justice,
and former CDS,
and
then President of the National House of Chiefs.
So
those are
defined.
Okay. Then the President will now have the opportunity to select 11 more.
What he wants, who he wants.
Who he wants. Now, in fact, when it first started, there was nothing called this regional representation of the Council of State. Now it's a 31-member Council of State.
Right.
Then we introduced the concept of regional representation in terms of that, so that they can always factor in the advice from their regions. However, it is also now plagued with so much monetization. These are the angles that weakens the oversight function or the advisory function of the Council of State, because people spend a lot to win the elections conducted by the Electoral Commission. If you look at 89(3), it talks about the election of regional representatives of the Council of State. So how do you represent through an election? Right. So people spend a lot.
That's why we saw what happened in Ashanti and the
other regions.
Right.
So once people spend such huge sums of resources, you don't expect them to give any independent and sound
means
judgment.
There's an expectation from those who spend.
Who spend to also get.
From where?
From the government. Do you get the point?
Right.
So you don't expect those people to offer any alternative ideas to what the government wants. So it weakens the complete sound advisory role given enshrined in the Constitution, given to the Council of State. So I think this is one of the weaknesses that I think we should look at once again. Then number two, if you look at the 2011, Prof. Mills set up the Constitutional Review Commission. And one of their recommendations was that the President having the opportunity to appoint 11 reduces the independence of the Council of State.
Okay.
So they proposed that number should be reduced to 5.
Right.
So that it will be like outside people more than the government. so that when you advise, they will see where you are coming from. So based on the composition, you can see that these are membership that comprises of various diverse groups, religion, religious diversity, ethnic diversity, gender, and all those things coming together. It brings different perspectives.
If you look at the caliber of persons that in there recently,
yes,
it leaves no room to accept any bad feeling.
That's the point.
Because these are great guys, prominent persons.
But there's a saying that once beaten, twice shy. They've seen it before,
right?
And they are only worried about what happened in their past. So that's why President Mahama, if you look at the inaugural speech, he said he gave a clarion call that they must live beyond expectation, so that the perception out there that the relevance of the Council of State is no more needed, and because of that we must scrap it.
That is a huge indictment on the whole council.
Exactly.
For Ghanaians to really come out and think that it's not the body is not relevant.
Look, if you look at the President Akufo-Addo's time Council of State, a lot of them were doing active partisanship. I don't want to mention name, but some of them.
But the current one, the faces that we see, we all know where they stand as well.
You see, you may have your political leanings, but when it comes to the matters of state, Ghana should be supreme.
Right.
I am telling you that matters that the Council of State, there were several matters that, apart from advisory role to the president, the Council of State also plays mediation role between arms of government.
Right.
If there is an impasse between the executive and the judiciary and all those things, the Council of State is expected to play that mediation role, so that to bring that level of sanity and peace. But in that situation, you could see members of the Council of State openly condemning the opposition, as if the opposition is the problem. When you do that, you reduce the entire Council of State to a political arm or a party arm of government. So that level of independence was lacking in the other Council of State. My expectation, and I'm part of the school of thought that believes that we must go beyond just a mere advice to creating an avenue where the Council of State will serve as an upper chamber, sort of, as it is practiced in the UK, where they check on the excesses of the three arms of government.
Right.
Excesses in the sense that when there is a miscarriage of justice, when there is fiscal indiscipline, when there is abuse and misuse of power, who checks those things? It shouldn't take a citizen of Ghana to go to court. What about when the court also misconducts itself? Who does that? Who checks for them?
Right.
So I think that the Council of State plays an elderly oversight role that can create an ambience where people will feel comfortable to send issues to. Imagine when they set up the aura, you saw the number of petitions that went there. Right. Imagine we have a concept of an upper chamber where excesses of governance can be directed to. You can imagine the level of efficiency that we'll have in this country, because you know that somebody is watching the watchman.
Yeah.
You get my point? So the way our Council of State, as it is constituted now, I don't believe, or I don't expect anything exceptional, frankly speaking. Their rules are clearly defined in Article 89, and in fact, in the appointments of IGP, they need to be consulted as to whether what they said is taken or not. How do you know? I was also proposing, even if we will still maintain this, the Constitution as it is, I am of the view that Council of State must always also let us know the type of counsel they give to the presidents. Once we begin publishing advice we give to on issues of national importance, so that the generality of the public,
so to speak, like briefings once in a while, tell the public what they've been doing,
what they have been doing
behind closed doors.
Right. It gives us that confidence that indeed the president will listen, and it will also now make presidents more attentive to Council of State. You know why? Because they can go public. So if your own council of state says don't do A, B, C, D. You go and do A, B, C, D. When it backfires, then they absolve themselves from the blame. But we, in law, collective guilt or collective success, if you are in a board and a board takes a decision and you, in the minutes, we don't see you raising objections to the board's decision, you cannot claim ignorance of that decision.
Right.
Do you get my point? Yeah. So I feel like the Council of State needs to engage Ghanaians more than it is now. Now, we only hear Council of State when it is time for elections or the president shall appoint in consultation with the Council of State. In fact, this in consultation with Council of State or on the advice of the Council of State, Honorable Afenyomakin tested it in court, and the court affirmed what is in the Constitution, that their role is only a mere advisory role. So I don't expect, I know these are distinguished individuals, and I trust in their good judgment, but like I said, I don't expect magic from them.
If you look at the person of the president,
yes,
assuming we want to go by with the current, structure of the Council of State, if you look at the person of the president, do you think that from what he said, knowing from the background that Ghanaians are not happy with the dealings of the Council of State, do you think that the president may kind of give more room to the Council of State to operate?
Yes,
looking at the person of the president and the individuals within the Council of State.
Aside the individuals, frankly speaking, I have seen presidents. At least I knew what happened under President Kufuor proper. I've seen President Mills, and in terms of attentiveness, attention to detail, humility, openness, there is none compared to President John Dramani Mahama. Look, people don't understand the concept of the Century Consensus. If you remember, the Century program we did, it was not because the government had no program. President John Dramani Mahama believes in collective nation building spirit. I have no doubt. You see, today we are doing an educational dialogue. That is the type of president we have. He is not a president who believes that he knows it all. He is the president who believes that divergent views matters in the discharge of his duties. So he is not just saying words. But if you know the persona of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, I have no doubt that he will give room to the Right Honorable Speaker Doajo Council of State. And I am only urging them that they should be engaging Ghanaians regularly, so that we will understand the workings of the Council of State. Most of the reasons why people question the relevance of the Council of State is because a lot of their job is done indoors or behind closed doors. Ghanaians need to know. There should be that level of transparency in your, even the President of the Republic of Ghana, from time to time, engages us through the State of the Nation, as he will do on 27th of February. So the Council of State must always do regional outrages, explain the concept to them.
And I think that's why we have the regional reps on the council.
Exactly. So they must be able to educate our people. And that is why one time during the election, I had to call the Peace Council that they were not doing their job. No matter what you are doing behind closed doors, Ghanaians need to be satisfied that the taxpayers' money that they used to run these offices, they are used judiciously. So on that note again, once again, let me congratulate each and every one of them for being considered, and those who have been elected. I wish them all the best, and I pray that wisdom will not elude them. I pray that President John Dramani Mahama, as we have always known him to be, will give them space for them to contribute to nation building. If you look at the council,
young guys, 32,
yes, 32.
The youngest person is 32, the youngest member is 32, 36 and the rest. It looks like, from what even the chairman said so, it looks like whereas Ghanaians are beating down the council, the youthful generation, the young ones, are now showing much more interest in the council.
Which is good.
is it one because of the finances, or is it just because of prominence? Do we really understand what the issues are? Why the change? Why are the youth now more getting involved?
Have you watched the African politics in the last 5 years? There's a surgence of a youth activism in politics. If I look at the Senegal president,
Right.
Ghana is becoming a youthful country. The earlier we get it, the better for all of us.
You're looking at counseling.
You see,
At that age, is that possible?
I don't
People
think,
have always raised objection to the age.
I don't think good counsel, it depends on old age. I don't think so.
But that's what we've been given.
I have served on the finance committee of the party for 8 years. If you check the records, I've been one of the people that gives one of the finest finance ideas to the committee. I don't think age should be a barrier to opportunities. And some of us, when we're going to contest, come and see the caliber of MPs now we have. 32-year-old MPs, 34-year-old MPs, but the people in their constituencies believe that they can do the work. So he bringing let's even grant age as a factor. As a council, whilst they are doing the elderly ones, the youthful ideas, in fact, he can bring the concerns of the youth. One of the issues that Council of State deals with regularly is to check the temperature of the country and see how best they can assist the president to make sure that the country doesn't explode. The youthful person representing on the council can always relate to the youth,
Right.
and get our concerns known to the council. So for me, I am happy for him. In fact, any youthful person, and President Mahama so far has done well, aside the council, let's give him credit. He has shown the way that age is not a barrier to serving Ghana. And he has given us more than enough opportunities to demonstrate to the world that the youth can do it better.
Right.
So for me, I congratulate him, specifically the 32-year-old member, that he has opened gates for many to come. Ordinarily, before, people used to think that members of parliament should be after 50 when it started. Now, it's not a criteria. Council of State, when you hear the word Council of State, what comes to mind? Old people. He has changed the mindset of all of us to suggest that it is about service to the country. It's about what you can do to the president to succeed. So he has opened the gateway for us to...
You raised the issue about monetization, which is crippling, or has crippled into...
Yes, it has eroded there, yes.
Yes. How do we deal with that?
First of all, my proposition is that I don't think there should be election at the regional level. Frankly speaking, I feel there should be paramount chiefs. Every region has the overlord, paramount chief.
Paramounts, right.
I feel that they should represent the regions.
Okay.
Yes. You know why? Because it envelopes, the paramount chief envelopes and negate the concept of political parties, because he is a unifier. Once you leave it open for anybody of certain age and gravitas to contest, you don't determine how they win the elections. And if care is not taken, one day we will elect our Council of State members and the president cannot work with them. So there must be a way of building a consensus around regional representations, such that people who represents the region, in any case, why not the regional House of Chiefs? Instead of the national president alone there, why not the regional House of Chiefs, in consultation with the regional coordinating council, nominate a representative?
Okay.
The regional House of Chiefs represent the traditional elders. Then the regional coordinating council represent the governance aspect of the region. Jointly, why not them agreeing and get us a representative? So that they will look at service to the land, right. They will look at experience, they will look at wealth of achievements, they will look at so many other factors, and then choose one person to serve on the Council of State. So with that, you have the blessing of the entire region.
Right.
But if you leave it open, in the last 4 years, if you look at Pisholana, the former MD for Stanbic Bank, okay, contested and lost. Look at the material we lost. An MP, a former MP for Kumbugu, contested and had 0. So once there is an election, you tend to lose quality. You tend to lose essence, and you go. And human beings are insatiable when it comes to resources. They may be tempted, and sometimes they vote immediately. They finish voting, they regret and come out. Yeah. But that time, they have mortgaged the future of the region into the hands of somebody they don't trust for the next 4 years.
And the recent one, the new election that just went by, we could see clear politics. The two major political parties taking sides.
Yes.
Is that not a danger?
There's a danger. And it shouldn't be like that. So that's what I'm saying, that the Regional House of Chiefs and the RCC would have killed the idea of partisanship. Yeah. Once you leave it on an assembly election, is it political?
It is.
It's not supposed to.
It shouldn't be.
But it shouldn't be, but it is. So a political party can know their chances of an upcoming election based on the number of assembly people.
One of your own members, I think one of your leaders,
yes,
is on record to have said that in his constituency, all the assembly members are MPP. Meanwhile, and I was shocked when I heard him in Parliament that day.
Yes.
For him to come boldly and tell Ghanaians that...
Unless you want him to be an ostrich.
Yeah, of course.
But that's the truth. So that's what I'm saying.
But it's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to.
Yes.
So that's why there are calls for reforms, so that we'll do assembly election on partisan basis. If not, whether we legislate it or not, it will still be political. Right. But my point is that Council of State, the meaning, an advisory, bringing wise counsel, bringing the concerns of the traditional rulers in your region, the security agents, the religious basis, bringing all of them their advice, because you must solicit. The reason why we have the regional representation is to get counsel from the region and come and give to the president.
Right.
So how are the chiefs featured in these elections? How are our religious leaders featured in those elections? How are the RCC featured in those elections? We leave it to the NDC and PP politics. That's usually what happens. Right. So I think that that's why I started by saying that it's losing much essence because of monetization on the election of the 16 regional reps.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we cure it? I know you've mentioned about the creation of the upper chamber and the rest.
Yes.
How soon can we get this done? You are in Parliament. What can we do?
You see, it's
maybe perhaps looking at the next council of state.
Yes. I think it's high time that conversation just came. So I discussed it with the leadership, but we'll look at it in future council. But like I said, the effectiveness of the effectiveness of the Council of State depends on the receptiveness of the president.
Right.
So far, I know that this council might succeed because of the persona of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. But under President Akufo-Addo, somebody who can even tell a chief to stand up, how do you expect him to listen to the same chief on the Council of State? So the president must also be a listening president. The president must also be such a balanced leader, such that don't be a repository of all knowledge. Just know that other people can also contribute to your success. So on that note, I believe that this council will work, but I still come back to my earlier call that Ghana should be thinking towards moving the Council of State into an upper chamber.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So, you're still live with us here at Pan-African Television, and my guest is the Member of Parliament for the Sagnarigu constituency, and we're doing discussions around, the Council of State. Is it still relevant? Do you think that we should have, a different body to advise or, lead or counsel the president towards national development? I'm taking a quick break. When I come back, I have more in store for you. Please stay. Welcome back to the program. This is Hot News, and we're live from our studios here at Parliamentary. My name is David Otokuno Ato. Join me on Facebook and all our socials at Pan-African Television. You can also connect with me personally on Facebook at Atos Watch, and then I will get back to you. A lot of messages coming in, but I'll just reserve them at the end of the program. Now, let's go to our next issue, because the ruling government, the National Democratic Congress, is on the path to fulfilling some of the campaign promises. You remember on the campaign trail, the president of the land, the then flag bearer of the NDC, made a lot of promises to cure the virus within the educational sector. True to his word, we've started the educational review dialogue, the forum. It's going around the country, and let me inform you by way of information that you can get all the details right here on Pan-African Television, because we're traveling with the Ministry of Education to bring you every bit of the seminars, every forum, to your doorstep, to have a better understanding as to what the ministry is trying to do. So, the president, as I said, through the Ministry of Education, is going around the country soliciting views and opinions from stakeholders, commoners, anybody around or wherever you find yourself in the country, on the way to improve the current state of education in the country, which has been beset by a lot of challenges. You remember from the and how much work, people don't normally talk about it, but at the elementary level, the primary level, huge challenges. We are not talking about it. Everything seems to be focused at the free SHS programming, and that's a big worry. So the president says that he's called Ghanaians to order. Let's meet and dialogue, and that is what is happening around the country, commencing today. Honorable, now, it looks like the president seems to be fulfilling most of the promises.
Yes.
First of all, how do you see the current structure of education in the country, right from the junior level to the upper level?
So I will begin by commending, like you said, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for living up to expectation. This is the type of leadership that we want. I see some level of sense, some level of decency, some level of honor returning back to the seat of government. Because in the previous administration, we saw some level of opacity in his dealings, and this dialogue is part of the 120-day social contract. And is it up to 120 days already? And we're already seeing fruits of it. So I want to commend the president for leaving the talk. We must move away from sloganism to action-oriented leadership. And he has demonstrated that not only in this dialogue, but in most other of the promises that he made in the 120 days. Now, moving to your question, how do I see the structure of education? I see that there is so much lack of policy coordination in our educational sector, in the sense that the learning outcomes are not properly targeted. For example, you just mentioned so much has been talked about the second cycle education and little talk about the elementary education. So where is the link? How are we training our children? There is no synergy between what the learning outcomes you want at the basic level and how it will relate to that of a second cycle, and how it will relate to the tertiary. So that's so much lack of policy coordination. In fact, it doesn't even inspire people to make proper planning. A child growing up may want to be science person, a doctor. He gets to secondary school, go and do home economics. He gets to university, go and do general arts, something else. So there's no synergy in how we want to groom our generation, get unborn, and those currently are available. So I see that there must be so much policy coordination. We must have positive learning outcomes at every level, so that we can connect and see how we want to build the country over the next few years. Look, when this free SHS started, my expectation was that aside tackling the issues of affordability, we should have expanded it, because the concept was that a lot of people can't afford. And then the introduction of the free SHS will bring them back. So my expectations was that Ghana, looking at the global trends, should have understood where our competitive advantage is as a country, and then tailor and introduce courses that would tailor a lot of our manpower into certain areas of our society, such that when you don't even transition into the tertiary level, you are equipped with some basic skills. In fact, if you go to these international schools in Ghana now, at the college level, that's their secondary school or JSS, the collegiate system they practice here. When you see a child age 14 and what they can do, and you compare it, most of our university students can't do it. So it's like we are so much interested in policies, but we are not interested in outcomes. And that's what EduWatch always question us against, always banding figures about how much we spend on education without looking at its replaying outcome. So I think that Ghana's moving forward, all our educational policies must be tailored to achieving certain learning outcomes. And that's how I see it. In the last 8 years, I saw a lot of policy incoherence in the administration of our academic institutions. That's what I would say.
The former government, pride itself, establishment of STEM centers.
Yes.
A lot of issues around changing the scope of primary education in the country, but we didn't see so much. And I keep asking myself, how do you create an educational system without textbooks? Yet the then government prides itself, and sometimes it makes me funny, when I see the former educational minister priding himself in the creation of STEM centers and the rest, without much recourse to, the issues that you raise. What do you think that this educational dialogue will bring on?
So
you've identified the issues.
Yes,
what are we looking at?
I've identified the issues. So we must get something right. Education is a shared responsibility. To educate your child is a shared responsibility. It's a responsibility of the person providing the education and you, the parents, and other stakeholders. So oftentimes when parents take their children to school, they think that the education rests with the school. But I think that education moves beyond the classroom. So the type of guardianship you also give to your walls at home, the input civil society make into your educational policies, and then the funding sources cumulatively engineer proper education. So this policy dialogue seeks to bring all stakeholders in this value chain I've talked about to jojo and see how to improve education. So I said it's a shared responsibility because government has a role to play. But you as a parent, you equally also have a role to play. Policy think tanks in education also give credibility to government policies to secure more funding sources abroad. So all these things collectively, once you are able to get different perspectives to learning and improving the learning conditions of our people, to get a unified policy, it will stand the test of time. Because you take inputs from stakeholders like the policy makers, that's the government itself, and through the Ministry of Education. You get it from civil society, you get it from parents, you get it from traditional leaders, you get it from the religious leaders. All this, it makes the program a united program.
What would be your definition of a properly structured educational sector?
My definition is an educational system that is holistic in nature, that has a complete policy outcome and milestones right from the day of inception. From primary, people should be able to get their directions. I expect curriculum to be one of the curriculum that I always envisage is career opportunities at the primary JSS level.
Right.
There must be psychology that tutors and tailors the minds of kids to identify their skill set and know what they should pursue.
Right at that level.
Right at that level. That is how you do policy coordination, so that a child doesn't change his mind from medicine to political science to archaeology to nutrition to music and dance.
That reminds me, I did science. Here I am.
Do you get the point?
Yeah.
So it makes us lose the human capital, because this person, look, I had a friend who was so good at art. When he draws something in US and other developed nations, people pay millions of dollars for artworks, but the parents said no, because we haven't instituted psychological measures in our educational institutions to tailor children to a particular learning outcome. How do we also engage the PTA to understand that children at the tender age can easily be spot on and they must be allowed to pursue their dreams? All these things is lacking.
Right.
And what are we rather good at doing? We're rather good at doing piecemeal approach to education. Look, somebody in my constituency, I'll mention names. If you go to Swashi, you go to Bukomo, you go to Boakorgo, you go to many other communities in my constituency, at the basic level, they don't even have furniture. In fact, in Kasalugu, a roofing sheet to a school got blown away by rain. For one whole year, they wrote to the assembly, wrote to Ghana Education Service just to replace it for people to have a conducive learning environment. They couldn't. I, as a parliamentary candidate, had to go and do it for them. Currently, I am building a school for the people of Wayamba, a JSS block. Why is it that GET Fund is no longer functioning to provide this basic infrastructure deficit? Why? Because government used the GET Fund allocations and the income flows that come into the GET Fund to procure a loan. So we collateralize GET Fund to procure loan to spend. So any money that goes into the GET Fund is used to amortize loans. Those are some of the challenges that you don't toy with the people, the future of our children, with this type of policies. And I am so happy. Look at the theme of the dialogue.
Yeah.
Transforming education for sustainable future. The past government, when he was interviewed before he even won election, how much would free SHS cost you? He said he would tell Ghanaians. We ran education for 8 years without any policy document.
No source of funding.
No source of funding, no dedicated source of funding. So when you do that thing, that is why it is subject to always a review. Do you know what they rather did last minute? They brought some funny documents and created a chaotic situation in Parliament in the run-up to the election, and wanted to win Ghanaians to thinking that they wanted to pass a legislation to protect free SHS, and NDC were not willing to come. We are saying that it's a constitutional imperative that mandates that as we progress, we must consider introducing free SHS, and this has come to stay. Now, I want to take you to the policy outcomes.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, that everything that you are doing must be tailored to achieving something. Look, President Mahama has given them 5 thematic areas. One is infrastructure. You and I know, as we speak, the first year SHS students in Northern Region, they don't have furniture to sit. All schools. First year SHS that they just admitted, they don't have furniture to sit on. How do you expect such a student to excel like his colleagues abroad? And is this the type of education that we call free? Sacrificing quality for affordability? Even affordability, yes, they said free education. But look at the prospectus when you want to go and buy items for your ward for school. Right. It's even more than paying fees. Where did we go? Where did we come? Number two, so infrastructure deficit is one of the thematic areas President Mahama wants the education minister through this dialogue to come up with requisite infrastructure projects that will complement the effort of government to creating a conducive environment for our people to learn. Right. Number two is quality education. I will not spend my time. Quality education. This is a qualitative variable that you cannot just pick and say this quality, but you use the outcomes. Go and check at our public universities. Products of free SHS in public universities, look at the attrition rate at the first year. Look at performance at the first year.
Awful.
The products of free SHS in most of the schools, when they get to...
Yeah, awful.
It's very bad.
Yeah, very awful.
Why won't it be bad? The goal is that don't fail anybody. The goal too is that rather get past questions, no textbooks. So it is just like a transitional period. You move here and go. Yeah. People take all sort of grades to secondary schools now. Yeah. How do you want to get excellence? So President Mahama wants us to improve quality. We mustn't sacrifice quality on the altar of political expediency. I don't think that should be the objective of any government. We must make sure that these same people that you are sacrificing their future, when you are no more there, they will become leaders of this country. And is that the type of leadership you want to exhibit in the near future? No. The third one has to do with regulations and accountability. Look, under the buffer stock project, when they were doing school feeding, you know, they took it from the bursary system from the schools and gave it to buffer stock. Yeah. You saw what our brothers and our children were eating. You saw. In fact, sometimes, apart from the double track that they introduced, the traffic light, feeding forced them to also add another traffic light. Despite them spending less than a cedi on a meal, yet they couldn't afford it. But the people at the buffer stock became millionaires, mortgaging the future of our children for their personal goals. So President Mahama wants to make sure that proper regulations are there to guide the expenditure that is meant for education, and also bring to book all those who stole the monies meant for our children in terms of education. And then finally is education financing. Look, it's a problem.
Very key.
Very, very key. That's more fundamental. Yeah. Because GED Fund cannot support what we know they used to do. Scholarship secretariats, where is their funding source? Free SHS, where is their funding source? So these are some of the things President Mahama expressed the policy dialogue to give us more answers to, and then we can now do the budget presentation in March. And then finally, we are incorporating research into our educational institutions.
That's very also important.
Important. Research and development is everything. But
the teachers will be looking forward to their research allowances.
Not the research itself. So I think that we have to commend the president once again for fulfilling this social contract. And also in particular, I have no doubt on the competence of the education minister, former minority leader.
So we're going to see an improved educational system after this.
Very, very improved. But let me give you these takeaways. One, free SHS will not be cancelled, but it will be better than before. Two, feeding as our schools will be improved. Three, there will be enough furniture for our people. According to EduWatch 2024 report, 5,000 schools are still under trees. Under President Mills, it was 1,002. We eliminated virtually all. How come it has grown to 5,000? So that's something that's lack of policy coordination. We just take one layer of an education,
so this time is going to be very holistic, right? From
take it as a holistic approach. You saw that 2016 election was on free education. 2020 election was on free education. It was only in 2024 that they saw that the free education was not free like they said, and they now moved to digitalization, and that didn't wash. So my point is that we shouldn't be doing our education like that, toying with the people's mind. We must make sure that right from KG, there's a career pursuit, there's a career tailored educational outcomes, so that every kid knows the direction. Look, Ghana has a deficit of engineers. We still have deficit of pilots. We have deficit of so many areas. What are we doing to train more people in those areas? None. Right. So that's what I'll conclude by saying that Education Minister Harun Idrisu, I have no doubt he will perform and excel well to our expectation.
All right, let me just go to Facebook and get some messages before we wrap up on this program. This one is from Hamdullah Mutala, says beautiful submission. Thank you so much. Alasan Ilyasu also says nice submission. Baba Yai, monitoring you live in Batanyili. Am I right? Okay, then Ibrahim Sadiq Sunday says the Council of State Powers as stand by the Constitution will not influence the character of the President. That suggests there should be an amendment of the Constitution that gives Council of State some some superior powers over the President. Sunday, monitoring you from Tamale. Thank you so much. Salah Dalla says, I'm watching you live from Sagnarigu. The Akwetia MP should not be allowed anywhere near Parliament again. They think that we are still under the lawless Kufuor Baumia's economy. This is just the beginning. More bench warrants are yet to come. Abdullahi Basha says, monitoring you live from Sagnarigu constituency. Ataisa, the finest brain and very energetic MP. This one is from Salbu Dela. We pray that the current Council of State should not be like those under the NPP government. Abdullahi Imuru Suleimana, a second honorable's point of limiting its selection to the paramount chiefs because it will get to a point where it will be politicking, and when that happens, it will be difficult to advise the president. A lot of messages. This one is from Wahab Dimila. My great MP, Honorable Atta Issa, we are proud of you. Alaji Prince Tikuma. Honorable Atta Issa is an asset not to the constituents of Sagnarigu, but the entire nation. I support the idea that National House of Chiefs should be consulted and considered for the position of Council of State. We are proud of you, Honorable Atta Issa. I'm monitoring you from Sagnarigu. Okay, a lot of messages. Let me take this last one. Hambia Aye. Our education needs a different direction. The direction is that television must be added to our educational system. I don't get that. All right. Okay, so a lot of messages. Thank you so much for doing the watching, and thank you so much for, getting to us through your messages. Honorable, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you another time. And I want to say a very big thank you to you for watching there, and then we'll advise you.
I forgot to congratulate the one who won for Northern Region, Honorable Mumone.
Okay, the Council of State.
Yes, the Council. I want to single-handedly congratulate him for overwhelming endorsement that he got. 26 out of 32 people. So congratulations. As for him, he's a man of many talents and he has accomplished a lot, so we trust that.
All right, thank you so much, and good evening to all you out there, and a very, very good night to you. Coming up next is Justice Appear. My name is David Otokuno. I'll see you same time tomorrow. Good evening.